Excellent. Let me take the our guest speaker's bio. It's our guest speaker today is a special person, Professor Usman Aita. He has a PhD. He's an endowed professor of defense and security studies at the Nigerian Defense Academy and commissioner, which means the present commissioner of information and internal security in Borno State. Professor Tar was the dean of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, director of the Center for Defense Studies and Documentation, and pioneer head of the Department of Defense and Security Studies in the academy. He was also a member of the Board of Social Science Research Council, African Peace Building Network, New York, United States of America. He was formerly Associate Research Fellow at John and Arona Ferguson Center for African Studies at University of Bradford in the UK. He received his PhD in Peace and Conflict Studies from the University of Bradford, United Kingdom, Masters of Education from Leeds Metropolitan University, and he also had a Bachelor of Science in Political Science with a first class from the University of Maiduguri in Nigeria. He has over 30 books and over more than 100 research articles to his credit. Professor Tar was a member of the Federal Government Committee to review the National Defense Policy between 2014 and 2015, and he is presently a member of the Federal Government Defense and Security Think Tank. He has been a member of the Federal Government Entourage to Republic of Sudan to represent the expert paper on Nigerian experience in federalism. Professor Tar has consulted for several organizations, including the Westminster Foundation for Democracy, United Nations Development Program, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. He has also served as a visiting professor and external examiner to the several institutions of higher learning in Nigeria and overseas. Today, we have the pleasure to bring Professor Usman Tar to speak to us on our ongoing topic, on the theme, how we can talk about sustainable development, looking at the area of security. He is the best man for the job. Professor Usman Tar, the floor is yours.
Dr. Kevin Arno, can you make him a co-host as well, please, to enable him unmute himself easily?
Yeah, I think I can.
I think there might be a bit of challenge with his network. It keeps dropping off.
I'm just trying to find him. If you find him before
No, he actually, I noticed he dropped off. I think his network might be unstable. But let's be patient, please. Apologies, everyone. Okay, yes, he's connecting now. Just waiting for his audio to connect. But in the meantime, can you make him a co-host as well, please?
If you see him before me,
Is
I
on.
think you
Just
can. Okay.
search with Prof.
Okay. Yes, he is now a co-host.
Okay, good.
Professor, we are ready when you are.
Hello.
We can hear you, sir.
Hello.
We can hear you, sir. We noticed you dropped off earlier. Welcome
Hello.
back, sir. We can hear you, sir. Proceed, sir.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly now.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you, sir. Please proceed.
We can hear you.
We can hear you
Yes,
clearly
we can
now.
hear you, bro.
Hello.
Is he muted?
No, he's not muted.
It's not muted. He can also maybe
Can you hear me?
sometimes take off the video and then.
Prof, you can take
Can
off
you
the
hear me?
video. We can hear you clearly. Your network seems to be
Hello.
unstable.
We can hear you. Can
You
somebody
can
send him a message?
you can probably take off your video if it will help
Hello.
to improve your
He
network.
can't hear you, Patrick. Let somebody call him or send him a message.
Okay, sir.
I've done that already.
Good.
He's trying to reconnect. So he can't hear us, but we can hear him. So he's trying to reconnect. I just spoke to him now.
All right. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
I assume you are hearing me because one participant called and said you are hearing me. I can't hear you, so I assume you are hearing me.
Now we can hear you loud and clear.
We can hear you very well, sir.
Loud and clear.
I can hear you too now. Okay. The time is 5:34 here in Nigeria. I'm going to stop exactly 45 minutes from now. But Kelvin, please remind me when it is 10 minutes to. My lecture is titled The Impact of Insurgency and Terrorism on National Security and Development in Nigeria. Please, I'm sorry for the mistake in the title. The paper is divided into 6 parts, as shown on the screen. Please, Kevin, can you operate the PowerPoint? The next slide is on the content of the presentation. Kevin, can you do that? Introduction, conceptual framing, background to the insurgency and terrorism in the Northeast region. Then number 4, interrogating the impact of the activities of terrorists and insurgents in Northeast Nigeria. Number 5, the challenges of counterterrorism and counterinsurgency operations. Then conclusion and recommendations. Let me start with the introduction. Terrorism and insurgency have affected the Nigerian state and indeed her neighbors in profound ways. Initially, the Boko Haram terrorism and insurgency was considered as a local problem here in Nigeria, and neighboring countries of Nigeria did not consider it a serious problem until the problem of Boko Haram insurgency assumed a transnational dimension, until the Boko Haram insurgency started kidnapping Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
The line went off. I assume you're hearing me.
Yep, you're back now.
So hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yes,
I assume
please.
you're hearing me.
We can hear you clearly, sir.
Okay.
If
Please,
it
next
helps,
slide.
if it helps,
The
you
next slide
can
shows
turn off
the-
your video. If it helps, you can turn off your video
Okay.
so that the audio can be stable, sir. Thank
Okay,
you,
I've done that. Maybe I have done that. So I was introducing the problem of Boko Haram insurgency. Initially, it was a local problem, but it has since become a regional problem. So the slide immediately after introduction shows the Boko Haram insurgents, a snapshot of the Boko Haram insurgents in their uniform, and the inscription behind them shows their mission, their ideology, and so on. But
Apologies, everyone. I think it seems it's having a very unstable network.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Hello? Sorry, the network is terrible. Honestly, I don't know. We're in Maiduguri, so I am sorry. Well, I have introduced, I don't know whether you've heard me, but the next section is a conceptual framing. Basically, in this section, we introduce the key concepts such as terrorism, which we defined using both the textbook definition of terrorism, but also the practical definition of what we consider to be terrorism in Nigeria and elsewhere. We also defined the concept of insurgency, which is very closely related. Please go to slide number 11. We are, looking at the key concepts. Terrorism, insurgency, these are the key revolving concepts. Violent conflict, organized violence. For want of time, terrorism, counter-terrorism, counterinsurgency, which refers to attempts by the armed forces of a nation and related establishments to stem the root causes and the manifestations of terrorism and insurgency combined. The acronym for the two terms is CTCOIN, counter-terrorism, counterinsurgency. It's a very technical concept, but let me simplify it. It's the doctrine, the strategy, and the operations that are aimed at stemming the root causes of terrorism and insurgency, as well as the manifestations such as armed violence and armed attack by terrorists and insurgents. Now, the next section, section 3, is background to the evolution of the Boko Haram insurgency. In this section, we looked at the root causes of the Boko Haram insurgency and how we, ended up with an insurgency organization that was initially, at least at the initial stage, a local, highly localized movement that ended up in being a transnational violent non-state actor. Boko Haram is not the name that they even want to be called, but it's a common name. It's a pet name that, or societal name that society calls them. It's a radical Islamist movement that emerged, at least in the form that we know them today, that they emerged in 2009. But the antecedents of the Boko Haram movement dates back to previous dispensations. Especially the Metasine riot, for example. There are, semblance of the, ideology, the activities, and the sentiments of the Metasine sects resonates in the Boko Haram. But Boko Haram is actually the modern day manifestation of anti-statism, with religious, at least initially with religious sentiments attached. The movement is unique in the sense that it combines a sectarian, radical Islamist agenda with violence. Its stated aim is the establishment of a Sharia state, but it also shows little interest in actually governing or implementing economic development. It is based on the fundamentalist Wahhabist theological system and opposes the Islam of the traditional northern establishment. The Islam of the traditional northern establishment is that of the Tijaniya, the Sufi movement, the Tijaniya, the Qadiriya movement, and the Salafist, the liberal dimension of the Salafists. But the Boko Haram, they are the extremist dimension of the Wahhabi Salafist movement. And there was serious disagreement between the moderate Salafists of the northern region and the elements within the Boko Haram movement. So they are a radical movement, a breakaway movement away from the traditional Islamic Sufi Islam and from the also the Sunni Islam of the north. And their aim is basically to break down the Nigerian state, come up with an Islamic state, which is practically impossible. So the Boko Haram's multiple and complex set of followers and admirers, both the foot soldiers and their sponsors, also called Yusufia, initially consists largely of impoverished northern Islamic students and clerics, as well as professionals, mostly unemployed or self-employed, who are fighting for the Islamization of northern Nigeria and indeed Nigeria at large. So in 2009, there was a standoff between the a funeral procession of the members of the Yusufia movement and the Nigerian police. And this led to the killing of some of the sects. They refused to wear bicycle helmets, and some of them were shot at, and the insurgency started. Of course, the killing of Mohammed Yusuf after his arrest, conflagrated the subject matter. This is a very typical scene that you see. Go to slide number 17, please. 17. This is a picture of members of the Boko Haram movement arrested by the contingents of the Nigerian army, known as Operation Hadinkai. Before they were known as Operation Zaman Lafia. And this is a typical scene. It's a very, very typical scene in the peak of the counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency movement of the Nigerian armed forces. So in summary, the Boko Haram movement later, around 2016-17, they splintered into, they had the splinter all this while, but the splinter became serious when the two groups, the Al-Barnawi faction and the Shekau faction, engaged in a standoff leading to the death of Shekau. And this created an opportunity. This is Shekau. Please go to slide number 19. This is Shekau, slide number 19. Yeah, with his lieutenants. Behind him is one of the equipments of the armed forces that they stole in one of their daring operations. At a point in time, they became so strong that they were able to capture a significant number of local government areas in Borno State and in Adamawa and so on. But from 2019 to date, they have been weakened. But they still remain active. Remnants of the Boko Haram, especially the Al-Barnawi faction, are still actively engaged in the insurgency. But the Shekau faction, they are willing to surrender, and most of them have actually returned to accept the amnesty deal offered by the Borno State government. So in terms of the impact, or the manifestation of the Boko Haram, they have created three kind of zones, which we found out in our studies. The hot zone is the domain of the armed operatives. The warm zone, where we have mixture of enthusiasts, critics, and those sitting on defense. That is, if you go to any enclave, any city or village or peri-urban environment, you see the warm zone where you can see a mixture, but it's very difficult to differentiate between the activists, the enthusiasts, the critics, and so on. Then we have the cold zone, where we have defenseless, innocent civilians that are susceptible to incursion, recruitment, and radicalization. This map in slide 21 shows the map of the Bay states, that is Borno, Adama, and Yobe State, where the Boko Haram insurgency is prevalent. The green areas are normal areas of normal Boko Haram activity. The yellow are some disruption and reduced activity. The dark yellow, significant disruption and limited activity. And the red spots are areas of minimal or no activity. That is basically in the urban areas. This map is at a point in time, I think it's around 2014, 2015. This map has changed to a better one now. Now, I move to the impact of the activities of terrorists and insurgents on national security and development in the Northeast. This is the core of my presentation. I identified about 9 or 10 impacts. The first one is humanitarian crisis and internal displacement. Boko Haram insurgency has particularly been tagged one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history, and the phenomenon has escalated into one of the worst internal displacement in human history. Since 2013, it has generated over 2.3 million people displaced, over 2.3 million people within and across the various borders of the Lake Chad Basin, in which the northern part of Nigeria, northeast part of Nigeria, is part and parcel. The drivers of displacement in Nigeria, even though multidimensional and complex, with the emergence of the Boko Haram movement, the displacement scenario in the northeast and in the north too has changed dramatically. The statistics is very disturbing. The 2018 figures released by the European African Dialogue on Migration and Development shows the three main triggers of forced displacement in the Lake Chad Basin, of which Northeast Nigeria is a part. One, protracted community clashes over natural resources, accounting for 5.5. These are the drivers of the insurgency. 2, natural disasters causing 1.5 of displaced persons. And 3, Boko Haram insurgency, 92.9. So it is fair to argue that Boko Haram insurgency constitutes the bulk of the reason for displacement in the Northeast. So this is the key point. The key point is that the Boko Haram insurgency has displaced millions of people. If you look at this, the last bullet point, you will see 7.7 million people in the Northeast. This is a 2018 figure, so way up from the previous figure of 2.3 million. 7.7 million 2018. Today, it might go up to 9 million or 10 million, but I'm not sure. Next, slide number 25. This is a very typical scenario in the Northeast. Displaced persons moving away from area of active conflict to areas of less active conflict. Next, in 2018 alone, next slide, slide number 26. In 2018 alone, of the 541,000 new displacements that were recorded in Nigeria, 341,000 were as a result of Boko Haram insurgency in the Northeast. And the remaining 200,000 took place in the Middle Belt region, which is not a focus of today's discussion, but it's a marginal focus. Towards the end of 2018 alone, about 2.2 million people remained displaced due to terrorism. And as I said earlier, by 2018, 2019, 2020, this figure may have gone up. The next point is food insecurity. Associated with humanitarian crisis is food insecurity. When millions and millions of people are displaced, their means of livelihood, especially farming, is also displaced. And this places a huge burden on the state in terms of providing palliative. A country-specific analysis of the Lake Chad Basin region, of which the Northeast Nigeria is a part, revealed a deteriorating trend in terms of food insecurity and the uncertainty of future projections, whereby humanitarian crisis in the region hampered cereal production and other production, livestock production too. This is 2017-2018 figures. The fluctuation in the production trend was experienced by approximately 1/3 of households in Borno and Yobe State to be lower than 2016-2017 farming season. Threats of food insecurity caused by insurgency has made the Northeast region to face one of the world's worst food security crises, with around 3.8 million people who face critical food insecurity and 7.7 million people in need of life-saving humanitarian assistance as at 2018 June. Today, the figure may have gone up. Slide number 29, you see typical photos, typical scenarios of the depth of displacement. Slide number 29, please. Slide number 30 still provides additional figures on the degree of food insecurity and the repercussions of food insecurity in the region. So today, over a half of the population of the Northeast do not produce food for itself or for export to other regions or other countries. This has significantly affected Nigeria's GDP. The Northeast is. Hello?
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Please, can you move to point of time? Can you move to slide number 33? So after humanitarian crisis and food insecurity, the next impact is climate change and climate vulnerability. Climate change is closely related, or it affects and is affected by human activities. And where there's a massive displacement of people, where agricultural activities are hampered, climate change is considered a factor. It affects and is affected by these two factors and the other factors that we are going to mention. Climate change resulting in drought has become a recurring feature of the Lake Chad Basin. And the occurrence of hydrological drought is in the increase as both surface and groundwater levels are decreasing. The Northeast, let me emphasize, the Northeast is part and parcel of the Lake Chad Basin. It's the Northeast comprise about 23% of the Lake Chad Basin. So it's a common geological setting. So when I refer to Lake Chad Basin, it invariably means the Northeast. The desertification in the Northeast is influenced by both climatic and human factors and is regarded as one of the most important climatic change, making huge impact on environmental sustainability in the Lake Chad Basin. Desertification caused by climate change is still impacting on vegetation cover, and there is a general decline and disappearance of large trees and woody species, which have serious implications for agricultural production and for human survival too. Most of the trees that we used to know in the Northeast have since disappeared as a result of both human and environmental factors. Human, especially the ongoing insurgency. Insurgents, fall down trees. They cut down trees, and the armed forces too, they destroy trees and the vegetation. And as a result, the degree of desertification and desert encroachment in the Northeast have increased, thus leading to further climate vulnerability. Slide number 35, please. Slide number 35 is the next point. After climatic change and climate vulnerability, the next point is infrastructural decay. The degradation of infrastructure and basic services brought by the armed conflict has wreaked havoc on the local environment and public services, especially public health. Water supply system could be contaminated, has been actually contaminated and shut down by bomb blasts. In the same vein, in landscapes which have been subjected to excessive use of heavy military vehicles, toxic dust is a very real environmental issue, containing heavy metals such as cobalt, barium, arsenic, lead, aluminum. Toxic dust can cause serious respiratory disorders for military personnel and local residents alike. In the Northeast, we are beginning to witness very strange illnesses like renal failure, like cancer. They are on the rise in the Northeast. And this could be as a result of the, environmental decay and the inability of the existing infrastructure, our road system, the healthcare system, to take care of the people in their times of need. In Nigeria, the National Policy on the Environment stated that the physical environment needs to be protected from automobile exhaust, from military vehicles in the Northeast. The military have been bringing a lot of strange, heavy-duty equipments that impact on the environment and on our infrastructure. Most of the roads are destroyed as a result of the movement of heavy equipments and equipments that will destroy the roads that are already dilapidated and other infrastructure. The military, they take over schools and convert them to military barracks. And meanwhile, the people have disappeared from their local environment. They are moved to the cities. So if you look at the Northeast, Google, aerial map will show that most of the infrastructure have gone. But I make it bold to say that in Borno State, we are making a comeback with a very serious investment in infrastructural development. But this is a work in progress. Next slide. Next slide. You see, this is a picture of a community destroyed by the insurgents. In addition to the impact of the military on the infrastructure and the exit of the local state, the host state, from infrastructural development, especially in the rural areas, the Boko Harams, they constitute the greatest havoc in terms of the destruction of infrastructure. Wherever they go, they destroy any infrastructure that comes their way, including houses. This picture shows the destruction of civilian houses in Bama. Although the government have since rebuilt Bama and returned the people back, this was a picture once upon a time. And the remnants are still going around and destroying villages and rural communities this way. Please, can you go to the next point? Slide number 38. The next point is destruction of biodiversity. Majority of the Northeast vegetation being analogous in structure is bound to face damage as a result of the ongoing armed conflict. The physical environment in the Northeast, which has hitherto been facing environmental degradation, is being further degraded by the armed conflict. According to the revised National Environment Policy, drought and desertification are by far the most pressing environmental problem affecting northern parts of the country. The visible sign of desertification resulting from persistent drought and climatic change is a gradual shift in environment from grasses, bushes, occasional trees, to grass, bushes, and in the final stage, expansive area of desert-like conditions. It has been estimated that between 50 to 75% of Bauchi, Borno, Gombe, Adamawa, Jigawa, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Sokoto, Yobe, and Zamfara states in Nigeria have been affected by desertification. These states account for about 35% of the Nigeria's total land mass. It is estimated that the country is currently losing 351,000 acres of its land mass to desert-like conditions annually. So in 10, 20 years' time, you can imagine how Nigeria will be desolate. You know, desertification has continued to be a serious environmental menace to the country's land resources. And if care is not taken, the desertification will move southwards, God forbid. But this is the reality. Still more data, more analysis on the. Please go to slide number 40. Productive activities, including agriculture, fishing, livestock. Please look at the yellow bullet. And trade of the respective products have been interrupted by episodes of Boko Haram insurgency and systemic violence. Community assets and food reserves have been destroyed, which contributes to an already severe problem of food security and prevalence of global acute malnutrition, GAM, in the Northeast. This is a 2016 analysis. Next, go to slide 41, please. The next point, I think this is the fifth point on the impact of the activities of terrorists and insurgency in Northeast Nigeria is unexploded munition or unexploded ordnance, UXO. Military campaigns generally, insurgency, terrorism, and city coin operations require large quantities of explosives, a fraction of which will not detonate properly, leaving unexploded weapons. This creates a serious physical and chemical hazards for military personnel, as well as the civilian population living in the area which were once war zones due to possibility of detonation after the conflict. We are dealing with, especially in Borno State, we are dealing with the problem of mine clearance right now, and the clearance of unexploded munitions. Before each village is returned, the first thing that is being done is to clear the village of mines. But those clearances are not 100% perfect. Still one or few remain, and the danger of unexploded munition may remain for many years to come. Besides, the leaching of chemicals into the soil and groundwater remains a real danger. Landmines are victim activated and indiscriminate. Whoever triggers the mine, whether a child or soldier, becomes its victim. Mines in place during a conflict against enemy forces can still kill or injure civilians decades later. Some of the mines that were planted in Northern Africa during the Second World War are still exploding. So the Boko Haram insurgency may have left, a serious problem for years to come in terms of unexploded munitions, even though the state is doing its best in order to clear the mines. Next problem, next impact. Slide number 42, please. Depleted uranium munitions is another problem. Research indicates that depleted uranium could contain cancerogenic components, that is, elements that will cause cancer. Yet countries continue to use the chemical elements in arms. In the munitions that the armed forces use, the armed forces of Nigeria, and indeed all armed forces, one of the elements is uranium. The residue of this toxic metal often ends up in the water system, the aquifers, which can lead to serious health problems for both human and animal consumptions long after the cessation of the conflict. We are still in active conflict. We cannot even determine the severity of the problem, but it is fair to argue that the problem of depleted uranium will continue to affect water sources. In fact, in Maiduguri and in the Northeast, it has already started affecting water sources. And some of the strange diseases that I mentioned earlier could be probably, most probably, as a result of war-related chemicals that percolate down into the aquifers. Though exact figure and data on the tons of bombs so far expended in the ongoing counterinsurgency operations in the Northeast is unknown, what is certain is that the rate of bombing is likely to degenerate the level of radioactive exposure capable of making the Northeast environment carcinogenic. Now, these are the key impacts. Now we move to the challenges. What are the challenges of countering terrorism and insurgency in the Northeast? Again, I identified few points. Go to slide number 44. The first challenge, challenge A is the limit of kinetic warfare. Since the emergence of the Boko Haram insurgency in 2019, the government of Nigeria has deployed troops under different codenames: Operation Zaki, Operation Lafia Dole, Operation Zaman Lafia, Operation Hadinkai, name them, Operation Sharandaj, name them. Those operations have not yielded the desired result. The limits of kinetic approach has since been exposed because the challenge is not a conventional challenge. It is a challenge that exists in the mindset of the people. The insurgency is a psychological problem. It is not a physical problem. It is not even a demographic problem that you can, resolve by eliminating a demographic sect. It is a problem that exists in the people. So the kinetic approach to the countering of insurgency and terrorism have since been exposed. In December 2015, the federal government declared Boko Haram technically defeated. In an interview with the BBC, the then president, Muhammadu Buhari, told BBC that the group could no longer mount conventional attacks against security forces or population centers, and that the group has been reduced to fighting with improvised explosive devices, only remaining a force in his heartland of Borno State. However, unfolding events after this declaration of victory suggest that the scale of success against Boko Haram insurgency using conventional military tactics has been a bit overstated, as the group have continued to quietly rebuild after being severely downgraded by the Nigerian armed forces. Quietly rebuild. Quiet rebuilding will include going back to the population, the communities, and convincing them, especially the young folks, to join up. And the Boko Haram has been very successful at that because they provide the psychological oxygen and the and incentives for the civilian population to join up. And in an environment of chronic poverty and underdevelopment, it is not difficult for an insurgent organization or any band of criminals to convince young people to join up. That shows that kinetic approach alone cannot solve the problem. There is need to invest in the battle for hearts and minds, in quick impact projects, in psychological operations, and so on. So next slide shows the limit of kinetic operations, the limitations of large-scale deployment of military platforms and arsenals that has so far failed to achieve the desired result. It has only succeeded in eliminating some of the insurgents, but not all, especially deep in the forest and in the minds of some people. Next slide. Please, can you go to, no, not this one. Go back. The limit of kinetic warfare. After that, you see, please, yes, no, not this one. Yes, this one. Now, this is a village. Go forward, please. 2 slides from now. This is a village that was a Boko Haram stronghold. What the Boko Haram do is they come and they either embed in villages or they dismiss, they vanish a village, the people, and take over the village. In essence, they take over local assets and they convert it into their own operation, center. So when the military come, they destroy everything, including civilian homes that were already, commandeered by the Boko Haram. So this, the kinetic approach itself has its own limitations, in the sense that it's not driven by intelligence. It is not driven by, what can I say? It's not driven by the need to separate between the core insurgents and those that were, found that were trapped in the line of fire. So when the military come in, they destroy everything that come their way. And that's also another limit of the kinetic operations. And many innocent, many culprits were destroyed, but some innocent. In fact, many innocent people were also, excuse me, killed during the operation. This man could be innocent, he could be implicated, but he may since have been killed. Since. Next. So we are done with the limit of kinetic. Next is interagency rivalry, slide number 49. I am about to finish. Slide interagency rivalry. The ongoing internal security operations in the Northeast region have increasingly shifted away from joint military operation to single service operation. At least before, recently there's a change. But even now, it is fair to argue that the army is in charge of the operations. And this has brought about rivalry between the army and other services. That in essence is the argument that I'm presenting here. Next is civilian in the front line. The Boko Haram insurgency, next slide, slide number 50. The Boko Haram insurgency has brought about a situation in which the armed forces alone could not face the problem. So at a point in time, the civilians were conscripted into the counterinsurgency forces. In Borno State, they are known as the Civilian Joint Task Forces. In other states, they may have similar names, Yangora, Yensake, and so on. This is a good development, at least in the short run, in the immediate term. But in the long term, it may generate problems, especially when the military exit at the end of the operations, when the military go back to their barracks. What are we going to do with the civilian joint task forces that now have combat capability? They have ability to handle weapons. They have ability to, carry out operations. What do you do with them? Do we, put them into the armed forces? Do we, institutionalize them and maybe convert them into maybe a support service? What do we do with them? In Sudan, they did similar thing, and they established the Janjaweed militia. It is the same Janjaweed militia that is now challenging the armed forces, and the civil war in Sudan is caused by previous civilian joint task forces that became, that demanded that they should be part of the armed forces. And today, the commander of that civilian joint task force, or Rapid Response Force, as they call them, is constituting a threat to the nation, and he has challenged the armed forces. If we don't take care, Nigeria too will face the same problem. Every state, we have civilian joint task forces. We have Yensake, we have whatever. We have, informal armed organization that is supporting the armed forces in its kinetic operations. What do you do with them 10, 20, 30 years from now? That is another challenge. For today, they are serving the immediate purpose, but what do we do with them in the future? This is what happens to them. Next slide. This picture shows hunters. Hunters are also now part and parcel of the security architecture in the Northeast. They are armed. They are given arms and ammunition. They are given, peripheral training in, counterinsurgency. And they are supporting the armed forces. And we are very grateful to them, actually. But what do we do with them at the end of the counterinsurgency operation? Because the operation will not last forever. That's a food for thought. Next slide. Next slide. This is another scenario of all the raft of civilians that are now actively participating in the counterinsurgency operations as an auxiliary force. With the assistance of the civilian JTF, the security situation in vast parts of the Northeast have been greatly improved. And this is an International Crisis Group report of 2014. However, there is a worrying question that needs to be answered. What happens to them after the crisis? The questions become pertinent because having exposed them to the inner workings of national security architecture, of strategy, of tactics, and of operations, they could become threats to national security if they are left alone at the end of the crisis by engaging in varying criminal activities such as kidnapping, armed banditry, cattle rustling, and so on. Next slide. Please, can you take us to slide 54? The next challenge is winning hearts and minds. The kinetic operations has only destroyed the physical infrastructure. It has not destroyed the psychological infrastructure of those who are sympathetic of the Boko Haram movement. The use of kinetic approach to end the insurgency in the Northeast has not yielded the much expected result. Consequently, there is need to pursue counterinsurgency operations through constructive engagement. One such approach is known as winning hearts and minds. And the literature is very apt on the need to win hearts and minds. The psychological operation is very important, if not more important than the kinetic operation. That's a challenge, but we have so far underinvested in the psychological operations, and this is very important. Part of psychological operation is to make life easy for people, to talk to them, to persuade them, to use modern technology, to use modern platforms of information and communication technology, social media, and so on, to use liberal scholars, liberal clergies, to persuade the people to, accept civil ways of doing things and to accept the constitutional legitimacy of the formal state in Nigeria. Next is the neglect of the Almajiri system. When we talk about Almajiri system, our fellow compatriots in the southern part of Nigeria will immediately frown their face. But the Almajiri system is a system of school, non-Western educational system that has existed for centuries. But it is a system that has been abused over the years. Most of the elites that you see in positions of government, from the vice president to Governor Zulum, to the governor of Adamawa State, all of them, they are product of the Almajiri system. But the good one, because in every community, the Almajiri system is there. We call it Sangaya. But over the years, poverty, decay of value system and so on have led to total collapse of the Almajiri system. there is need to invest in the Almajiri system. And let me give credit to former President Goodluck Jonathan for investing in the Almajiri system. He provided the fund, he provided the leadership, but the bureaucracy made it difficult, so not much was achieved. If we will sit down and fix the Almajiri system, it will reinforce the Western educational system. It will also make radicalization less attractive. And that is a reality that we have to face. We cannot eliminate it because it's part and parcel of the northern system. It's part and parcel. The north is largely, part of it is Muslim, but we also have Christian brothers and sisters. The Muslim part, the Almajiri system is part and parcel of it. It's a system of education where, Islamic education can be combined with modern education, science, technology, philosophy, and so on, so that the Almajiris can grow in an environment of civility, in an environment of compatible educational system of the old order, of the Islamic order, and of the modern, order. So that's another challenge in the region. This is an attempt by some states like Katsina. In Borno too, we have the Sangaya board. The board for Sangha and Arabic education is an established board with curriculum now. The government is, institutionalizing all these schools, setting a common standard, irreducible standard that all the Almajiri schools have to follow. Those that cannot follow will be closed down so that they cannot operate anyhow. They cannot radicalize communities anyhow, and they cannot be a breeding ground for radicalization or poverty. So, and the government will also put in resources in terms of funding, so that over time, in the next few years, I'm telling you, Borno State and other states too will fix the Almajiri educational system. And this is the way to go. Maybe our brothers and sisters from the southern part may not understand this, but this is a system that cannot be eliminated. It has to be fixed. It has to be rewired so that it can serve a modern purpose and it can support the constitutional federal system that we have established and we are operating in this country.
Sorry, sir. Are you? I don't know if you've seen your message.
Who?
Time.
Okay, please go to slide 61.
Okay.
Internal displacement and humanitarian relief. I think I have spoken extensively on that previously. It's also a challenge. It continues to be a challenge of the problem of counterinsurgency in the country. Internal displacement continues to challenge any effort to, counter insurgency and terrorism in the country. And insurgents still seek recruitment from IDP camps. Still, they take, refuge in IDP camps. It's very difficult to separate between insurgents and the IDPs in the IDP camps. So it's a very big challenge, very convoluted challenge. Next, please go to slide 64. Refugee crisis. This is the external dimension of internal displacement. A huge number of Nigerians are seeking refuge in Niger, Chad, and Cameroon, sorry. Some have gone to Ghana. The figure is staggering. I have the 2019 figure as at May 31st, 2019. Nigeria has 118,864 refugees in Niger, 104,884 refugees in Cameroon, and 15,950 refugees in Chad, with a total of, amounting to a total of 1.948 million persons outside of the country. That is the population of a small state or a small country like Gambia. Gambia is, maybe about that population that of displaced person refugees outside of our country is the population of some small countries. In January 2019, Cameroon forced several thousand refugees back to Nigeria. This action was condemned by UNHCR, but the situation has improved. Most of these countries have allowed the refugees to remain. And the Nigerian government is working very hard to return them back. But it's a very serious problem that, that has to be faced. For how long will Nigerians remain in overseas countries, I mean, neighboring countries, in the name of refugees, not economic migrants. These are refugees living on handouts. Next challenge is DDRR, demobilization. You know, a lot of the terrorists, some of them have returned with their arms, many have not. Many of them buried their arms and moved into the city in the name of de-radicalization, demobilization, and so on. So we still have problem of the proliferation of arms, small arms and light weapons. We still have, remnants of the terrorists still holding on to their arms. Those that come, it may be that they did not come out with all the arms in their possession. So demobilization, disarmament, rehabilitation, reintegration is a big problem. In Borno State, we opened a special purpose vehicle known as the Borno model for reception, or, it's a platform for terrorists to, to surrender unconditionally to the local state. The federal government too came up with, earlier, it came up with Operation Safe Corridor, also another platform for the, institutionalization and, de-radicalization of, armed terrorists, those that are, arrested in the line of operation. So it's a big problem. And the Safe Corridor program is faced with a lot of problems of communal rejection of rehabilitated ex-combatants. That's one problem of, the friction between the huge funds spent on rehabilitation of ex-combatants and the deficit in the management of IDPs and refugees. It's a big problem. But the key problem is that of disarmament and demobilization. Rehabilitation is an ongoing problem. It can be fixed, but disarmament will take a long time because of the huge concentration of arms and ammunition in society. Environmental impact, I think we have discussed that earlier. Next page, slide 66. Slide 66 is environmental impact. I think permit me to just move because I've explained that extensively previously. Slide 67, the externalities of Northeast crisis.
Please, can we wrap up, please?
Yeah. I tried to explain that the Northeast crisis has implications and repercussions on other regions. We have 6 regions in the country: Northeast, North Central, Northwest, South, South, Southeast, and Southwest. The problem of the Boko Haram insurgency is increasingly drifting to the other regions, especially the Northwest, where we have problem of kidnapping and so on. In the North Central too, it is fair to argue that there is an organic connection, two-way traffic between the Northeast crisis and the crisis in the sister regions. But the problem is yet to go deeper into the southern part. God forbid. We hope that it will be resolved very soon, but at the moment, there is an organic link between what we are facing in the Northeast in terms of internally displaced persons, in terms of food insecurity. The Northeast used to supply a huge quantity of the livestock that the other regions need, especially the South. There is a decrease. In fact, there is elimination of the volume of livestock that we supply to the South because of the insurgency. The same can be said of the other regions. The South does no longer come to, not all come to the Northeast for trading. In the past, we used to see Igbo traders, Yoruba traders coming, going all the way to Baga, to, to Mubi in Adamawa, buying stuff and coming back, returning back to the South to sell. This has declined, and it has hugely affected the GDP of our country. So by externality, we mean the consequences of the crisis from one part of the country on the other parts. Suffice it to say that Nigeria is a system. Nigeria is a federal system where we have comparative advantage and disadvantage between the different countries. The Northeast, insurgency in the Northeast has become something of a burden on the whole country. But the impact of food insecurity, of decline in agricultural production has also become another burden on not only the Northeast, but also the other parts of the country. Now, permit me to conclude. I think I have overshot by about 10 to 15 minutes. In conclusion, Nigeria is presently locked in a protracted battle with the Boko Haram terrorist group. The group's attack have undermined general security across the Northeast and the country at large. And it has shattered the country's economy and development. The Nigerian state has launched a kinetic operation. This kinetic operation has been active since 2009, but it has its limitations. Putting boots on the ground has not yielded the desired result. There is need to invest in infrastructure, in battle for hearts and minds, to, de-radicalization and so on. We emphasize that there is need to balance between kinetic and non-kinetic approaches to fighting insurgency in Nigeria. We support the Human Security Theoretical School, which proves that armed conflict and counterterrorism, counterinsurgency operation not only have negative impact on the physical environment, but also on the economic system, on the on the demography, and so on. So there is need to strike a balance between the kinetic and the non-kinetic. I have some recommendations, which permit me to just mention the key points. First, there is need to balance kinetic and non-kinetic operations, as I said earlier. Two, there is need to ensure interagency collaboration between the different strands of the armed forces and defense establishment that are cooperating or interoperating, in the same environment. Interoperation is the ability of different services to work together in harmony in order to achieve mission objectives. So interoperability is very important. Next, slide number 72, please. There is need for political and institutional design. Nigeria's federal system, we have to look at it again. Nigeria's defense establishment, we have to look at it again. Nigeria's educational policy, we have to review it. In fact, Nigeria needs a total overhaul. There is need to overhaul almost everything, including our human psyches. All our sectors, the economic sector, the banking sector, the agricultural sector, environmental sector, youth, everything, we have to sit down and look at it. A national conference or a national, maybe the National Assembly can constitute, committees to look into this subject matter. A national summit will not be out of place. There's need to strengthen the Northeast Development Commission. We have a development commission in the Northeast. It's already well funded, but there's need to strengthen it further in terms of, and the Northeast Development Commission, it has to work. It has to sit down and work. That's another recommendation. There's need to return IDPs and refugees immediately. It is very shameful that the country like Nigeria will allow refugees to be scattered all over the West African and Central African sub-region, and will allow refugees to, contaminate the urban space. There's need to return people back to their villages. And to do this, we need to put in place or restore security, restore infrastructure, water system, educational system, roads. We need to rebuild the roads. The resources are there. If we have good leaders, then they need to invest heavily in DDRR, disarmament, demobilization, rehabilitation, and reintegration of ex-combatants. And the Borno model, I submit that the Borno model constitutes a very viable model for DDRR. But we also have the national model of the DDRR, which we are trying to harmonize with the Borno model. The national DDRR is in its formative stage, is being implemented now. They just launched it, and in Borno, we just went on a meeting, and we're having another meeting next week with the defense headquarters in order to harmonize the Borno model with the national DDRR infrastructure. This is the way to go. Then there's need for economic design. The economic system in this country, we have to look at it. As a free market mechanism, has it served this country very well? Liberal economic system, has it served this country well? We need to look at it. We need to look at our banking system, our central banking system, our commercial banks. We need to look at our fiscal policy and our, economic policies generally. Sociocultural renaissance. In the past, Nigerians used to love each other, but today this is not the case. We have ended up being, silos. We have 36 silos in Nigeria. Every state, within each state, we have smaller silos. The whole country is divided into smaller units and smaller pieces. People have gone back to their tribal enclaves. People have gone back to religious enclaves. The federal enclave, the federal platform is no longer functional. It is it's very abnormal. It's not ideal at all. We need to return back to our, national social and cultural engineering. First Act 1977. Those were the years when we were operating as the, linchpin, as the, spearhead of Black consciousness and of global Black renaissance. We need to go back to that culture. Otherwise, Nigeria will not continue to lead the African continent. This brings me to the end of my presentation. Okay, development, nurturing, and effective social change, a change agent. People here, I think I'm talking about the need to build a community of change agents in this country so that they will, especially in the civil society, so that they will continue to influence public policy and societal harmony. This brings me to the end of my presentation. I think I've taken about 20 minutes extra, and I apologize for that.
Thank you very much, Professor, and the Honorable Commissioner, Information and Security, Borno State Government, Nigeria. Thank you for your wonderful presentations. And for the people who are in the audience, if you could send your questions within the chat area, the Honorable Commissioner would do well to address those questions. But just before I take up any of those questions, can I start by asking you, sir, assuming that His Excellency, the Governor, asks you to make write a request to the federal government or any international community for support in rebuilding the Borno State or the affected areas within the Borno State, so that in terms of to receive support and funding and all of that. So how much do you think economically has this Boko Haram insurgents affected the Borno State? If you can quantify that in terms of money, or
thank you very much.
You want to do that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The conservative estimate is that the Boko Haram insurgency has the cost of the insurgency in dollar terms, I think is $6 billion. $6 billion. You can convert it to Naira, sir. The impact not only on the Northeast, but also the whole country. In terms of, the GDP is about 6 billion. Well, you also said, assuming the governor asked me to submit a request. Well, we have our areas of priorities. In Borno State, soon after the present administration of Governor Zulum assumed office, the government established and launched the 25-year development plan. That was 2000. So by 2025, okay, the Borno State will recover fully. And we have 7 pillars, including human capital, infrastructure, and so on. So we have a development plan. If any donor comes, we just present a development plan and they just pick what they want to support. We are a state that is driven by knowledge, and we have a developmental focus. We are not, beating around the bush. In addition to the 25-year development plan, because we know the government will last only for 8 hours maximum, 8 years maximum. We also have a 10-year strategic transformation initiative. Okay, that one is for immediate and medium terms. Here too, we have 7 pillars. So we have our focus. We are ready to put our dollars and our naira where they should go. So if we already have the document, so we don't need to write any request. If any donor comes, if you want us to share the documents with you, I am happy to share the document with the Nigerian Society for Engineers. I will send it to Kelvin.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, sir. Because that follows the other question. Because part why the Nigerian Society of Engineers are interested in this topic is engineers are known to solve any type of problem within a society, a community, a country, or among some a given number of people. So the other question would be, what do you think that, because we have all our seniors here, that the Nigerian Society of Engineers can do to support Borno government and you in meeting this target? You said, I heard you say 25-year plan, and then by 2025, that Borno State will fully return back. So as engineers, what do you think that the NSE can do to support the Borno State government and you?
Thank you very much. The governor of Borno State is an engineer. He's an agricultural engineer. And he joined the governance of Borno State as sub-dean of the Faculty of Engineering, University of Maiduguri. In the Borno State cabinet, we have 7 engineers, agricultural, civil, mechanical, and so on. We have 7 engineers. The Borno State is the only state in Nigeria with the heaviest concentration of engineers at the highest level of governance. If you, myself, I'm not an engineer, so to blend in, I used to tell them, and they laugh about it. I say I am a political engineer too, so can't take me in, just as as a joke. Our priorities are in engineering terms. We need agricultural innovation. We need support in modern agricultural systems, such as precision agriculture, drip, irrigation, and modern sustainable forms of agricultural, production. The government has already started working on that. The government just established the Agricultural Transformation Committee. If the NSC can support this, that would be great. Number 2 is in the area of infrastructural development, in building, in road construction, in industrial technology. The government needs support in those areas and more of the physical engineering dimension. But the exact proposals, I may have to ask my engineer colleagues in the cabinet maybe to come up with a more precise request. Then we also need support in surveillance system, surveillance engineering. Borno State is a rural state, and I'm also speaking of the entire Northeast. We are rural states by and large. We need support in terms of surveillance of the rural space. If we don't surveil the rural space, kidnappers, insurgents, and other criminals would take ownership, will move into those spaces. This is precisely what we are facing. Actually, most of our forests are under surveilled or not surveilled, leading to ungoverned spaces. So what the government of the Northeast need, and we are working on that, is still at infancy. Our work on this is at infancy, is to, Katsina has gone far, is to come up with surveillance system with, modern closed-circuit television and cameras, the master cameras, the slave cameras, and so on, mounted on, inconspicuous platforms and inconspicuous poles, so that the entire rural space can be surveyed with a command center in the peri-urban and urban areas with nighttime vision capability. All this will help us, because if we don't take care, the rural space will become a breeding ground for more insurgency in the future. So if the Nigerian Society of Engineers can support in this area, that will be great. Then we are also working on the area of transportation. We need support in modern forms of transportation, especially the ones that use alternative energy, like the solar. The Borno State government has already procured electric powered vehicles on a trial basis, and it is proving very successful. So we can invest in more of that. That would be great. Then another problem is power. As you know, we are all Nigerians. The power holding company of Nigeria has failed. Huge investment of up to $16 billion in the power sector has not yielded the desired result. The way to go is solar energy. And the northeast, in fact, today, the weather is, what is it called? The temperature in Maiduguri is 45 degrees. The sun is very bright, and we have massive land for solar farms. The land mass of Borno State is 72,000 square kilometers, 72,000. We can build massive solar farms, because from one local government to another, you can go for 100, 150 kilometers before you see another settlement. All this mass land, nobody is there. We can build for solar, even export. Hello?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, these are some of the areas. But for precise proposals, I think we can link up with the cabinet members, especially those who are engineers. I can even link you up with Governor Zulum if you want to assist us.
Excellent, excellent. That's well noted, sir. Well noted.
Thank you.
Our branch patron's hand has been up. Patron, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me congratulate our branch, my branch, Matata branch. Always very proud of you. Well done. One, I knew I must not miss this. Two, is something also very dear to me because I am part of this. Incidentally, let me also correlate and thank the guest speaker. Done a great job. That was massive collection of facts and figures. Well done. God will help us. He has taken, mine is actually, there is a comment. And incidentally, in answering your last question, the guest speaker has provided answers to about half of them, if not more. And that is one, to say that we are extremely proud of Governor Wagada Zulu, whom I've known for quite some time. He's proudly an agricultural engineer like me. I still have the photograph we took in 2009. I've been to Maiduguri, to Kaduna State twice in the last 1 year, and I can say massive work being done. The last one, the governor hosted his colleagues, the Agri Division, it's your agricultural engineers. It was marvelous. Before then, it took us around all the projects. I make bold to say that any other governor can only match what Governor Bagana Zulum is doing. But in actual fact, faced with similar terrain, similar situation, I don't think any governor presently, maybe in the past future, in the past, recent past, sorry, can match what he's doing. He's hands-on, he's passionate, and he's applying every resource, and we know his pedigree. Recently, we the engineers are really helping. But let me confirm that even in his first cabinet, there were over 8 engineers, all of whom I know. And that is not to talk of the others, agencies, and what have you. So he has the services of the engineers because you cannot separate NSC from all those three. A number of them are very, very active. He actually donated them. I don't want to mention it for times. The Agri Division that the NIA is working closely with Governor Zulu. Recently, the national body working with the state government went with him to Niji Lucas in Ibadan. I'm sure we all know Niji Lucas. That's the foremost farmer in Nigeria in all value chain. You just Google Niji Lucas in all the value chain. He was the guest speaker at the lecture for me by Kaja branch. I'll come back to that emergency. From there, I was there. I had to come back to Lagos. He went to Uncam with the team of agric engineers, the National ESCO, also Alunga there, also Fabarode, and the list is long. Apart from the team he brought from Maiduguri, from IITA to Uncam to Unspri. Uncam is in Ilorin. It's National Center for Agric Mechanization. They're doing a great job. You can Google that, or if you have my doctoral lecture, soft copy. And then Unspri is the third product. I'm just saying this for you to know that engineers are already collaborating. I'm sure the guest speaker also knows. He probably was not in the team. Professor Boboy, Professor Babagana, my twin brother, not the first president, all of them were in it was a big team. After all of that, the team was set up and we're still working with all this group to fashion out intervention in Borno State. Whatever the Agri Division is doing, NSC National is also doing that. I mean, by extension. So, but it's good that the guest speaker has mentioned other areas through which colleagues and brothers and sisters in the diaspora branch, particularly the branch at this moment, can assist to look for funding, sponsors, and all of that in any other area. Solar, transport, agri. It would be nice for the branch to do something. And then, of course, you also be doing that on behalf of a general set of engineers. So again, I congratulate my branch, congratulate the guest speaker, and I want us to come up as usual with a roadmap to assist Borno State and other states. I know there are a lot of funds and agencies that friends abroad are aware. Please link them up to Borno. As he told you, if he gives you Governor Zulu number and you call him, if he misses your call, he will call you back. He was a guest speaker this last August. So I just want to corroborate what they have said and to say that already over the years, NSC directly and through his divisions, like agric division, have been working with the governor, our colleague, and it's still ongoing as I speak. There's an anti-platform of that. I'm sure one of these days, opportunity will arise for that presentation. Because I don't want to take our time after now, again, I want to thank the branch. I'm honored, I'm humbled. I thought I was just contributing my little quota and enjoying myself. I make bold to say that this is the only This is the first branch, and probably the only branch that was found worthy to be admitted as a branch, all by virtual engagement. And it was so loaded. All through COVID, it was fun. So we were busy, and we got there. And to date, Manchester branch remains branch to beat gradually. Generally, the diaspora branch for a particular Manchester, I'm very proud of you. I thank you for the honor. And I pray that come July 16, we have you all. I'm sure Governor Azulu will be my guest. Be our guest. Once again, Prof, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you, Petron. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. There is this question from Redmi Note. He says, my question is on the impact of foreign influence and activities of international donors, because there is a theory that fingers them as the main problem in fueling insurgency to pursue their continuous economic influence in exploiting Nigerian resources and instability in order to remain relevant in stealing our commonwealth. Professor and Honorable Commissioner, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, we don't want to use a blanket brush, a common brush, to paint all our donors and INGOs as in the harsh terms that the colleague used. However, there is credibility in his submission that some of the INGOs, international non-governmental organizations, may have ulterior motives. For instance, some of them rent accommodations in Maiduguri for 20, 30 years upfront, which means that they have a grand plan of the insurgency existing for the next 20, 30 years. So in order to manage the NGO sector, the Borno state government established an agency established by legislation known as the Agency for Humanitarian Support, Partnerships, and Sustainable Development. This agency is the lead agency in dealing with all the donors and INGOs. And the agency profiles all the NGOs and their activities in the state. I'm talking about Borno State. Other states may have similar setting. So with this, we have managed to control the NGOs that are doing good and those that are not doing so good. And we have even expelled some, like IMMP France. It's an NGO in France that came and we were not happy with what it was doing, and we said, please go. We have closed down the shops of several NGOs, but we have allowed the good ones to work, and they are under close monitoring. That's number one. Number two, in order to align whatever the policies of NGOs with our own, we have decided to close down, decommission all our IDP camps. We realize that the continued stay of the IDPs in urban areas is not sustainable. The palliative bill was high. The urban space was becoming something else. There was a lot of crime, of prostitution, of stealing in the camps, of illegal children out of wedlock, rape. So we decided to close down the camps. And as I speak to you, over 90% of the camps have been decommissioned, and the people have been returned back to their ancestral homes. And to return them back, we built infrastructure, we boosted security presence, we recovered the infrastructure, we rebuilt schools and so on, and then relocated the people. And what we did was to tell the NGOs, please follow the IDPs to their villages. Now you can go and give them post-construction support, peace building support. And those that agreed went, like in Gala, some relocated to Gala. Some said, no, we can't do this anymore, and they left. So that's how we have been managing INGOs. Talking of the donors, we had a close discussion with the international donor community, especially the UN. And we agreed that the donors should all keep
I think our honorable guest speaker his network is not cooperating. So just apologies to every other person that has questions. Because of time, we might not be able to admit more questions. Just on the last note, your questions, I will forward it to him, and then when addressed, I'll do well in returning them to you. Can I mention as well, please leave us with your full name, the way you want it written on your certificate of attendance, and leave us your email address as well so that we can send it to your email. On behalf of NSC Manchester, I want to thank everybody who has made time to join us today. Thank you very much. Can I hand over back to the branch chairman, Engineer Patrick?
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Kevin Anno, for beautifully anchoring that Q&A session. Engineer Ahmed Mohammed, please prepare to give the vote of thanks on behalf of NSC Manchester. Let me just quickly mention that. Let's hope the guest speaker is able to join us very briefly again. But I wanted to just quickly recognize a few people who joined us. Engineer Kule Adebajo, looks like he's dropped off. I know he was earlier in the arena, which was he gave a very good presentation there inside the arena. I believe some of us here probably joined that as well. Engineer Silvanus Ajuya, thank you for joining us. And lastly, I'd wanted to also permit our senior brother and one of our founding ESCO members, Engineer Dr. Mohammed Ngala. I'd wanted him to probably make some contribution, but I think you are most welcome. We would like to hear your voice, sir. Dr. Mohammed Ngala, please.
Thank you very much, Engineer Patrick. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I would like to compliment my my brothers, Professor Usman and my brother, Dr. Kelvin Anno, for an excellent and excellent beneficial.
Make us see your face, so don't tell me I see your face, so.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, just I must compliment that. Although we are away in the UK, we are very much at home, adding value to our country, our state. So once again, thank you very much, Dr. Kelvin Anno, for anchoring the session. And thank you to my brother, Professor Usman for an excellent presentation this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed.
I don't know whether I responded to that question on the donors and angels. I was talking, and I realized my connection has gone up.
Yes, that's right. Your connection went off.
But I think you did a good job. You actually you actually covered the one you expelled, the one you said is relocate. I think you did a good job.
Yeah,
okay.
We'll get Dr. Anna to follow up with you. But I think in the meantime, Dr. Mohammed Ngala, please, if you could just repeat what you said while the guest speaker was away, because I wanted you to. I wanted you to make your contribution while he's online.
Yes, at the point that you were saying we are all at home, we are very much at home, connected to our community back home. That's where I began to hear him. I didn't hear much of what he said.
Oh, yes, I was just, good evening, Professor Usman. I was complimenting your excellent presentation this evening, and also complimenting my brother, Dr. Kelvin Anno, for the session. We much appreciate you, despite your very busy schedule, to allocate nearly 2 hours, or over 2 hours, should I say, to enlighten us and support us at NSC Manchester, UK. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Ngala, one of our founding ESCO members. Thank you for joining us. So Professor Usman would get the certificate of appreciation across to you through our technical secretary, Dr. Kevin Anno. And also, we would also be inviting yourself and also the state to the first Engineer Demola Olorunfemi public lecture, which we are planning for 16th of July, 2024. And it's around food security, which I believe is one of the aspects you did touch upon as well. So we'll get those across to you. Thank you very much for the very detailed and very insightful presentation. At this point, let me call on our Assistant Technical Secretary, Engineer Ahmed Mohamed, who is based in Germany. So our members are not just based in Manchester. We have members all around Europe as well. So Engineer Ahmed Mohamed, please give the vote of thanks on behalf of NSC Manchester branch. You're on mute, Engineer Ahmed Mohamed.
Chairman, he's busy at home presently. The mom of the new baby is not around, so he's the one taking care of the kids at home. So he has asked me to take charge for him. So please, it's also German also taking over for another German as well.
That's good.
So on behalf of our branch chairman and every member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, Manchester, UK branch, we want to say a very big thank you to you, Professor Usman, for taking our time today to present to us this evening as our guest speaker on the topic, the impact of insurgency and terrorism on national security and development in Northeast Nigeria. We have been able to learn a lot from you today about this impact of these insurgencies in Nigeria, especially in the northeastern part of Nigeria, the likes of how all of this activity could lead to leaching into groundwater systems and also affecting, water provision for our people in the northeastern part of Nigeria. The effect of, on activated missiles also in these areas, and how we could be able to tackle them also for the future as well. And also the impact of even the local community development commitment to tackling these menaces, and also, on the interim, and also what the effect will be for us as a nation in the next 20, 30 years to come. And also some of these recommendations that are also given to us, and the impact of some of the NGOs that has been in Nigeria, the impact of the state government of Borno State, also what they have done so far to be able to relocate the IDP from where they are to giving them permanent structures and giving them good livelihood as well. I want to thank you for the time you have taken tonight, and we really, really appreciate you, because I believe everyone here this evening would have been able to learn not just one thing, but a lot from you today, because it is a general topic that affects each and every one of us. Every time, even here, I'm here in Germany, people do ask me, even Germans, they do ask me that what can I say about what is happening in the northeastern part of Nigeria. But I've been able to learn from you this evening, and I'm having some take home that when I get back to work, and then I can have more meaningful discussion with colleagues at work when they ask me about Boko Haram, because even here in Germany, a lot of them are more vast in what is even happening back home in Nigeria, because they just want to follow up and to know that, when we say we are from Nigeria, They want to know, they want to ask from us as well if we actually also know what is happening back home in Nigeria. So, Professor Usman, thank you once again. So, on behalf of our chairman, once again, Engineer Patrick Obidoyin, and all the executives of the Manchester UK branch, and all members, both in the UK, both in Nigeria, both in Germany, and all over Europe, want to say thank you once again for coming, and also to all other guests this evening. We know it is not easy. Today is Friday. You need to, there are always one activities or the other. I have been seeing some messages in other groups as well. There are some other, meetings about to start. Taking our time to join us this evening, we really, really, really do appreciate it. I want to enjoin you that on the last Friday of every month, please do watch out for our flyers to be part of our monthly technical sessions. Thank you also to our branch patron, Engineer Olorunfemi. We appreciate you. And for every other person that is here this evening, we want to say thank you. And we say in German, vielen lieben Dank. Danke.
Thank you very much.
Danke well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Engineer Adeyemi Adeleye. And thank you so much once more, our esteemed guest speaker, Professor Usman. We really appreciate you. So on behalf of NSC Manchester branch, we thank you all. We know time has been fast spent. We apologize for not starting on time. It was due to technical hitches. We know you will bear with us, and we look forward to contribution on our WhatsApp group. For those who want to join us, get in touch with our membership secretary, Engineer Adeyemi Adeleye. All details are also available on our website. Follow us on our X platform, X, Twitter, now X. Follow us on LinkedIn. So thank you so much, and remain blessed. Have a great weekend, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Chairman. Congrats.
Thank you, sir.
Adeleye, well done.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening, sir.
Well done.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you,
I really learned a lot today.
Thank
God
you
bless
very much
Nigerian
for joining.
engineers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.